All right, let's talk Las Vegas Raiders. This is a team, obviously, that's been in the news a lot recently with the trade deadline rapidly approaching. The Raiders have been linked to a bunch of really big time deals, but lost in all that hustle and bustle, the Raiders are quietly making a really smart move that I think will have a massive impact for them, both for the short term and the long term. We'll get to all that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick, that is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Las Vegas Raiders, everyone is abuzz with a bunch of players on the Raiders right now, whether it's Max Crosby, whether it's Jacoby Myers. Could someone try and poach, one of these players, maybe somebody else from a Raiders team that a lot of people think are sellers? No, I don't think Crosby is particularly for sale. The Raiders have certainly disclosed that that's not going to happen, and Crosby has clearly voiced he doesn't want to leave Las Vegas. Jacoby Myers, a different story. Maybe some other guys as well. There's some, availability for a bunch of players. Maybe a backup quarterback potentially becoming available that the Raiders could trade away. Obviously, Aiden O'Connell returning from injured reserve. He's a name that has kind of been floated around as well as a potential target for some people. But what the Raiders are doing here in the context of all of this drama, all this noise, I think is really important, right? So let's pull up our first article right here. It's actually a screenshot of an article courtesy of the Porters, Portersburg. There we go. X account. And they're citing a screen grab of the Jeremy Fowler article. Jeremy Fowler, for those of you who aren't aware, is a great ESPN reporter. Highly recommend. Fowler wrote, several teams are believed to be in the receiver market, most notably the Steelers and possibly the Broncos and Bills. Myers clearly wants out, and the Raiders are in a transitional phase. They just signed veteran Tyler Lockett, which could ease the loss of dealing Myers. Pittsburgh is keeping tabs on this one, but is prepared to be patient too. If I had to predict a destination right now, I'd say the Steelers. So again, Jacoby Myers, a lot of people sit there and say, yeah, he's out, he wants out. Trade's probably going to happen. And listen, when you go to, let's pull up our next graphic here. When you look at the odds, when you look at Kalshi, which is just an odds site that people can trade and bet in terms of percentage of all kinds of different likelihoods, you can see there's two Raiders that crack the top five. You have Jacoby Myers at 98% and Max Crosby at 37. That Crosby number feels scary high. That Jacoby Myers high number is probably about right, maybe a little high, but probably about right. But basically, the long and short of it is everybody and their grandmother expects the Raiders to make a trade. So why haven't the Raiders made a trade? They understand very astutely that time is on their side. They don't need to make a trade, right? In fact, currently the way it's structured, they're going to have $115 million in cap space next spring, in March. They're going to have a lot of cap space to make moves, right? They're going to have their normal set of draft capital the way things are going right now this season, unless they turn it around. It won't be, a back half of the first round kind of draft pick, right? Unless they turn around, which of course would be a positive for Raider Nation, but not seeing that right now the way it currently sits. So the Raiders are going to have cap space. They're going to have draft capital. They can sit here and wait. They don't need to make a trade. They have to hold on to Jacoby Myers, no problem, right? Get a comp pick at the end of it, right? They're happy to do that. It forces the opposition. It forces the Steelers, the Buffalo Bills, or whoever's going to be involved for a trade, most likely with Jacoby Myers, to have to overpay, right? To give up a lot for Myers, to give up a lot for whoever they want to trade for. Because the Raiders right now, they're just kicking back and say, listen, everyone's reporting. We know that you want our guys. And we don't have to trade them. We already talked about Jacoby Myers. We didn't want to trade Jacoby Myers in August when he wanted out. We can sit on this all season long. You, Pittsburgh, in this case, Buffalo Bills too, you're in win now mode. Bills, you want to have another season where you don't win a championship with Josh Allen? How's that going to go over? Hey, Pittsburgh, you went all in on Aaron Rodgers. You're going to waste that? Right now, guys, the Raiders, they've got all the leverage. Every single top flight contending team in the NFL, including those teams that I just mentioned that need a wide receiver, they are desperately begging the Pittsburgh Steelers, or I'm sorry, the Las Vegas Raiders for Jacoby Myers. They are begging for it. And as time gets closer and closer to the trade deadline, you're going to get one of these teams to jump extremely high. I guarantee you. Because right now, let's say the Bills and the Steelers, just sticking with that example, they both know Buffalo knows Pittsburgh needs Myers. Pittsburgh knows Buffalo needs Myers. So what do? At the last second, one team's going to be like, all right, fine, I'll give you a lot for him. Just because they need him, and God forbid if the opposition gets him. If the Pittsburgh gets Myers and the Bills lose out, disaster. If the Bills get Myers and the Steelers lose out, disaster. They both know it. We all understand it. Everyone, it's all out in the public sphere. Everyone gets it. There's no surprises. All the cards are on the table, right? You can't bluff your way out of this, right? And the Steelers right now, and the Bills right now too, they have lesser cards than the Raiders. They have to win now. They're guaranteed to go all in this season. If they don't win this season, both Pittsburgh and Buffalo, they got huge decisions to make. The Bills have cap space issues. The Steelers are going to have quarterback issues once Aaron Rodgers hangs it up, probably after the season. They've got to win now. The Raiders, they've got time. They got patience, right? They're retooling everything. They brought in Spytek to rebuild this franchise. That's what he's doing. He's got time, right? They got a lot of holes on this roster, right? It's going to take a lot of resources and a few seasons to probably fix everything. So what do the Raiders do? They make the smartest move you possibly can. They do nothing. They wait it out. They let Pittsburgh sweat. They let Pittsburgh lose to Green Bay and get a little nervous, right? You let the Buffalo Bills, right, build a few momentum, win a few games, but still sit behind the New England Patriots. Every day that goes by where the Bills aren't in first place, every day that goes by that Pittsburgh's looking over their shoulder, right, at the Baltimore Ravens, nipping on their heels a little bit potentially, the value of Jakobi Meyers increases every day, every hour. It just gets higher and higher and higher. And eventually, one of these teams will break and they'll say, fine, I'll give you a lot for it. That's what's coming. This is a great job by the Raiders. I thought the Raiders were going to make an immediate trade. I thought they were going to flip Jakobi Meyers, just say, hey, because we want to get Besh and Thornton and these guys more reps. Thought they were going to do that maybe a week ago. Now looking back, I realized, and this is why Spytek gets the big bucks, they're being smart, right? They're waiting because they understand that some team is going to jump incredibly high. And if no team is willing to jump, guess what? You let Meyers walk in the offseason and get a nice little comp pick for it, right? So either way, the Raiders win. It's not like they're going to have no cap space. It's not like they desperately need, third round draft pick or something like that. They're going to have $115 million in cap space. They're going to have assets for days in March. At this point, they can wait and just pick on one of these teams when the time is right, make them jump really high, and cash in with a big win. This is a really good job by the Raiders. A lot of people aren't talking about this, but a lot of times when it comes to making any big deal, any big move, whether it's in football, in life, in business, wherever it is, it's the guy who's willing to wait. People talk about the guy who's willing to walk away. That's important. But sometimes it's the guy who's willing to wait, the guy who's willing to be patient, and the guy who understands they have the leverage and knows how to use it. And John Spytek and the Raiders right now, they understand they're that guy and they're doing it the right way. They should end up big winners here when it's all said and done. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on everything with the Raiders and specifically this trade environment. But first, Raider Nation in the comment section below. I still think Meyers gets traded, but the way the Raiders are slow playing it, it means they should get a lot more than I originally thought for the wide receiver. But let me know in the comment section below, what do you want in return for Jakobi Meyers, right? Do you want him to play out the season and walk and get a comp pick? Do you want, a second round pick? Do you want a third round pick? Do you want a fourth and a fifth? Whatever it may be. Maybe a player from Pittsburgh or a player from Buffalo. There are some options there for sure. Give us what you want the Raiders to get in return for Jakobi Meyers. Put it in the comment section below. But Miles, I will throw it over to you now. What are your thoughts on all things Raiders?
Yeah, I think when you look at the Raiders, I think what you said is absolutely true as far as the slow play has been brilliant. The execution of trade talks and things like that, I think have made Jakobi Meyers the waiting, the game that they played makes him more valuable. And I think if you look at the landscape of receivers who are realistically available from teams, he's probably the best one on that list, the most valuable one as far as experience, playtime, all of those things goes. And I think when you look at around the sphere, and I have a tweet here I'll read. It says this one here, and it speaks to me as far as the game plan that they have here. And there's two important parts of this. It says, despite the pending addition of Marquez Valdez-Scantling, potentially to the practice squad, the Steelers are still in the market for wide receiver help. They've been in constant communication with the Saints regarding Rashid Shaheed since the bye and have long been interested in Jakobi Meyers. So Jakobi Meyers obviously is the guy they've always wanted, the guy at the top of that list. Like I said, he's the most valuable 1-2 people, but teams are getting desperate. Like, well, who else is an option here? They go look at guys like Rashid Shaheed, other things like that. But I think the Raiders staying firm, staying strong. Like you said, there's multiple teams out there wanting a receiver. He's at the top of that list, so people are going to have to spend top dollar to go get him. I think they'll use other guys, values as their baseline and try to go a little bit over that. But I think, like you said, what they've done here is a brilliant way for the Raiders to get top dollars for Jakobi Meyers. As you see, I agree with the charts, the call sheet chart that you put out there as far as 98% then he gets moved by the deadline. I agree. I think that Jakobi Meyers is going to be 100% traded to off this Raiders team to someone, probably Pittsburgh Steelers, probably Buffalo Bills, someone in that vein. But this Raiders team set up to move on without him and do just fine. I think we talked about it earlier this year, talking about the emergence of these young receivers for the Raiders and a guy like Trey Tucker they don't really need Jacoby Myers anymore. They're in a good situation to move off of him. Obviously, Brock Bowers and Ginty are really great weapons as well in the passing game and rushing game, respectively, for Ginty as well. But this is a Raiders team who is doing things right. You can't make a team win overnight. You got to, work at it. You got to build the infrastructure. We saw it. We saw the Detroit Lions. If Dan Campbell would have came into that team in that first season, he wasn't winning a ton of games. And they said, all right, let's throw the baby out the bathwater. We're done. He didn't win enough games. Let's move on. They never would have gotten to the situation they are at right now. So you got to give it a little bit of time. We've seen these rebuilds. We've seen what happens when teams do give GMs and coaches time. I think that's what's happening here in Las Vegas, and it makes me more comfortable knowing that they're willing to wait to get the best value for their players rather than, like you said, quickly, just at the snap of the finger, all right, we're going to trade this guy, give us whatever we can take for him. I think this is a really good move by the Raiders.
And just one final point to end on, you also have to look at who Buffalo and Pittsburgh are playing this weekend as we get close to the trade deadline, which is next week. The Pittsburgh Steelers are playing the Indianapolis Colts, who, to everyone's surprise, especially my own, seem to be an unstoppable juggernaut, right? If the Steelers lose that game, they're at 500. They're in a real serious position, losing 3 in a row, of having the season slip away from them. The Buffalo Bills are playing the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are playing great football, and they own Buffalo, right? So there's a good chance that come Monday morning, both of those teams, Pittsburgh and Buffalo in this case, and there could be other guys in the mix too, are looking at themselves, looking around and going like, our season's slipping away, right? We are one loss away. We are one playmaker not having away from our entire 2025 goals ending, right? Maybe slipping into the playoffs as a wild card and being one and done, best case scenario, right? That's what both teams, both franchises could be looking at Monday morning. And that makes the Raiders' position all the more valuable, right? There will be a point, like the second before the trade deadline, of course, where it's too late. But the beautiful part is, because the Raiders have so many assets, if a trade doesn't happen, they're still fine. They still have Jacoby Myers. They're going to get a comp pick for him when he walks in the offseason. And they have a lot of cap space. They've got a lot of assets, right? So even if everything doesn't work out, they're still fine in terms of their long-term plan. That's the beauty of the Raiders' position, and I expect when it's all said and done, they will make a trade, and they'll get a nice, hefty reward for it in terms of Buffalo or Pittsburgh overpaying for Jacoby Myers.